Hey guys, Justin here. Thanks for coming back for our second episode of our special summer series, Nic Cage HEATWAVE. Of course, we're glad to have Nick in studio here with us as well.
What am I doing here? Why did I bother to come here today?
Glad you could join us. I'm sure you must be really truly humbled by the level of admiration.
It's self-indulgent, it's narcissistic, it's solipsistic, it's pathetic.
Probably true, but let's face it, we all have better things to do this summer. The next course in this overcooked ham dinner is The Rock. Not the giant Samoan wrestler slash thespian, but the 1995 action film with Nick, of course, and Ed Harris and Sean Connery. This particular episode is famous for two things, really. First, it was only our fifth episode. And man, does it show. We are really green. But the other thing it established here was our long-living love affair with both stuntman and wigs.
I didn't know that, really.
No, it's true. So sit back and relax, do your stretch at Alcatraz, as we lovingly bring you part 2 of our special summer series, Nic Cage HEATWAVE, featuring 1995's The Rock. Take it away, boys.
What's that on your head?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome back to Grumpy Nostalgia, the podcast where we revisit that blockbuster new release wall in our memories, take a movie off the shelf, pop it in the old VCR, and see what time has done to both of us. So I'm Justin, that's Mike.
Howdy.
Hey guys, and we are here to help you navigate that memory lane that nostalgia has littered with landmines. So, we talked a lot on previous episodes about 1996, Mike, and
Yes.
we just can't help ourselves. We can't stay out of that year. So on this week's show, we're going to go back to that glorious year, 1996, and we're going to talk about.
Although I would like to appreciate your segue from the Interview of a Vampire, where we are leaving San Francisco, and here we come to a movie that is in San Francisco, so to speak.
It's very meta, Mike. We're all connected. I love it.
For those of you who listen to our Interview of a Vampire, that you can get that reference.
Which wasn't too many. People were not. I guess the Morbius traffic didn't really translate well, but we got a good amount of listens. But people weren't ready to talk about those sexy vampires yet. But
too early.
They'll come around. But again, just now that we're talking about our audience, again, we just continue to get to more downloads and more listens. So again, thank you for everybody that's listening in. We'd love to hear from you on email at Nostalgia Grumps, and you can always check out trailers and new show information on our Instagram page at Grumpy Nostalgia at Instagram. But you can always get a heads up on what's coming up next, and we'd love to hear your comments. So as Mike alluded to, we've been trying to co-op our episodes based on upcoming movies, so they kind of relate. There's some sort of tie in there, and so we're excited about excited might be in air quotes, but later this month there's a movie coming out featuring Nic Cage playing himself, called The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which the Pedro Pascal and several other folks cashing in on the ironic fame, I guess, of Nic Cage. And we started to think about this really subtle actor. When you think about it, Mike, usually plays his roles with a very subtle performances, but
Nuance, very nuanced.
Yeah. And we love our 90s movies so much, and obviously academically we get to the 1996 gem, The Rock. Not to be confused with Mr. Dwayne Johnson, who's in every other third movie in Hollywood anymore. But we're talking about The Rock in terms of Alcatraz. And wow, just wow, Mike.
Just wow. Where did this rank in the top 5 for 1996? I know it had to be the top 5, but where was it?
I think
in relation to our other two features?
I think in terms of box office or popularity is number 4 that year.
Okay.
So but yeah, as we mentioned before, very busy time. So this was released in June 7th, 1996, and it had, as during its release, it shared time in the theaters with Twister and Mission Impossible. Had come out a few weeks earlier, and then Dragonheart came out a week earlier than that. And then I think this came out the same week as Cable Guy, which, like it or love it, had a curiosity impact, at least on the box office. And then it was followed up with Eraser and another one of our favorites, Independence Day. So I mean, those are just giant movies sharing time in the multiplex for this thing. And wow. So it was directed by Michael Bay, who everybody knows now. This was pre-Punchline Michael Bay. This is his second movie after the Martin Lawrence, Will Smith. Hey, have you heard anything about Will Smith lately, Mike?
Just vague, just bits and pieces. I'm not sure exactly what happened.
But anyway, but he had come off. He was a music video director for our beloved MTV, which we'll get to around at the end of the show.
Please.
And their impact on culture. So
wait, what MTV award? Well, never mind. I guess I don't want to. No spoilers. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
You wait your turn. But it was written by a pair of writers, David Weisberg and Douglas Cook, and they're kind of like a writing team. But more importantly about the writing element of this is it had punched up by Quentin Tarantino and Aaron Sorkin.
Aaron Sorkin.
Talk about opposite sides of the spectrum, but they were both brought in uncredited, of course. But I'm guessing Tarantino did all the Mexican standoff type scenes, and I'm sure I got a little Reservoir Dog kind of whiff from some of these scenes. Hey, let's write my notes. Yeah, and I'm sure Aaron Sorkin had something to do with the military, the Ed Harris type dialogue. He's good at that stuff. But the Jack Nicholson monologue from A Few Good Men comes to mind. I'm sure he had a hand in that. But $75 million budget and released into a very busy summer, as we talked about. But wow, coming in at 136-minute runtime, Mike. But if you speed up all the slow-mo action, it's about 94 minutes, which I did. So what's interesting, I think, Michael Bay's kind of he's set in stone now as modern cinematic style, but this is kind of the first look at what he could do with the theater, and he really took a music video approach to filming. Interesting stats about this movie: the average scene length between cuts is 2.6 seconds.
Good God.
So it's barely time for your eye to process what's on the screen, and then he jumps to another cut.
Well, now were we used to this kind of filming in '96, or was this brand new to us?
Well, we had some of the Tarantino stuff earlier, like Pulp Fiction and True Romance and all the other stuff.
And I guess like you say, MTV videos were kind of trained.
Yeah, that kind of over stylized. We'll get to that. Of course, this was courtesy of that dynamic duo of producers, Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson. And Don Simpson died, I think, a few weeks prior to into the filming.
I saw the memorial to him at the end of the credits. So like, what happened to him? I didn't realize he died that early on.
Pretty common allegory about movie producers and cocaine and overindulgence, and he was just one of those guys. But yeah, and the cast, of course, is what really makes this movie. Mike, I'm sure you did a little research on who was in this movie. You want to walk us through it?
Yes, sir. It's a very meaty cast here. All right. We got Nic Cage, who, of course, everybody knows Nic Cage. And as far as I know, this was his first, action movie. He'd been in, obviously, other crime movies. This is like his first movie. I met, the big blockbuster movie. Ed Harris, who I love. I ever since The Right Stuff, he was one of my favorite, kind of understated, always had that presence,
Yeah, he played John Glenn, and he'll always be John Glenn. I mean, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. And
of course,
I felt a little sorry for him in this movie, but we'll get to that, I guess.
Yeah. Sean Connery, obviously, everyone knows Sean Connery, rest his soul.
Neil's brother.
Neil's, yeah, exactly.
I'm a bigger fan of Neil's work, but inside joke.
But I appreciated Sean wearing the long hair. It kind of reminded me of Highlander.
Oh yeah.
I kind of like that. Just for briefly until he got his
Well, if only he had some like stereotype stylist to come in and take care of that for him.
That's right. Well, he's on my list too.
Okay. Okay. Good. Can't wait.
Let's get Michael Biehn. Another one of my favorites. He's right there. He's in my panoply of Ed Harris. As far as just great
actor,
intense kind of guys. He's kind of James Cameron's. Part of the James Cameron stable. Yeah, he was in Aliens. And The Abyss and Terminator.
Made a career of playing Navy SEALs. I think this is like his third Navy SEAL role.
Yes, right. He was in Navy SEAls. You're right. I forgot about that. And he's with Ed Harris in The Abyss. Thought that was kind of a neat connection.
Yeah.
John Spencer, who I don't know from any movies. I knew him from LA Law, and I loved him in LA Law because he was like this no nonsense. He didn't take any of their other lawyers' crap, and it's kind of my favorite attorney on that show.
Yeah.
I think he was you were mentioning Aaron Sorkin. I think he was in The West Wing too. But I'm not positive. Okay.
Yeah, he was the chief of staff, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that being the director of FBI in this movie kind of made sense. Yeah. Then you had David Morse, who in this movie is Ed Harris's second command. I like him too. He's another great. He was great in 12 Monkeys, which maybe I mentioned before, and Contact and Langoliers, where he was a pilot for that Stephen King TV movie.
Yeah, he was. He was great in I think The Green Mile.
Yep, that's right. I forgot he was in that. Oh my god!
Great big man's gonna pull your ears off, Percy.
And got another muse here for Oliver Stone, John C. McGinley, who I knew from being in Platoon and Born on the 4th of July. Good gosh, how many movies he's in of Oliver Stone's? He was in JFK,
Platoon.
Okay, but I remember him best from Office Space, where
one of the Bobs.
He's the Bob, yeah. And then he was in
What
Scrubs,
would you say? What would you say you do here?
Okay. Then we have Bokeem Woodbine, another one of Ed Harris's. I guess he was a sergeant in this movie, and he's a action movie star. I remember him from Dead Presidents. And good stuff. Tony Todd, who we met at Dragon Con.
We did met him in Atlanta. Yeah,
and he's a menacing character in this one too. I think he's a captain that Ed Harris brings on, but he's
like the only legit bad guy in this movie.
Oh yeah, and you can feel it too. You could feel the Candy Man coming out.
Yeah,
you had Bookman from Seinfeld. He was one of the. He was like one of the chief of staff guys or something.
So what you're saying, there was a lot of guys in this movie.
William Forsythe, who was like kind of. This is like the only movie I remember him being a good guy, except for maybe Blue Street.
He's a typecast villain.
Oh yeah,
apparently he was a villain to craft services because he went to get a hot dog one day and the craft services people didn't recognize him and tried to get him kicked off set. So
nice.
That's good for your ego, I'm sure.
The stylist who does Sean Connery's hair and cuts off his flowing locks.
Yeah,
I don't remember his name, but he was in a couple of shows like on NBC and CBS.
Well, given this performance, we should not remember this guy's name.
Okay, thank you. and then we have the female members of the cast. We have Claire Forlani, who I just knew. I remember from Meet Joe Black. That's the only movie I could think of her from.
Yeah.
But she had a very small bit in this role. And then the other one was Vanessa Marcil.
Her first one. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. I remember her from Beverly Hills 90210, of course. And being, I think she was Mrs. Brian Austin Green at one point.
Yeah.
That bastard. But anyway, that's not a story.
A really empowering role, too. I mean, her job was to beg to get married out of wedlock, ask Nic Cage to marry her, and then have outdoor sex and pigtails,
right?
Really,
and then cry because he might be dead.
Yeah. So
poor guy. Oh wait, I forgot Jim Caviezel as a very, very brief. I guess this must have been one of his first roles, but he's a F-18 pilot. I saw that in the credits. Wow. I was like, oh wait, I don't even remember him in the movie. I don't think you saw him pass his little sun visor.
So Jesus flew an F-18.
That's right.
that starts to add up. Makes more sense.
He took the wheel.
Yeah. So, wow, that's a lot of people. You mentioned, Nicolas Cage, our hero. The executives felt that they didn't want him in that role,
of course,
because they felt he was too quirky. If you can imagine that, Mike. And then I think Sean Connery role was offered to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he just didn't feel he could pull it off, which I thought would have been odd because there's a lot of internet theory about this movie being like an extended James Bond universe, and the character Mason.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's away from the British agency for exactly 30 years. It's like, that's interesting.
But yeah,
never. I guess they forgot about Never Say Never Again.
Yeah, the wonderful Sean Connery, Tom Hardy's voice coach in Dark Knight Rises. Did you know that?
No way.
That's a joke.
Okay, thank you.
Give Gotham to the people.
But he was the voice of Dragonheart, right?
Yeah, that's right. He was. Yeah.
So he was a busy boy.
Yeah. So wow. So we probably spent more time talking about who's in it than actual content in the movie. But I remember the first time I saw this, I didn't bother in the theater. I think this is more of a pay-per-view rental thing for me. And it was just one of those things. Like, again, not of much consequence. Hardly remember it. I know I didn't dislike it, but I didn't really, I remember things of what happened. I thought it was a decent action movie, so to speak, but didn't really carry anything over with me. What about you, Mike? Do you remember the first time you saw this one?
Exactly the same reminiscing you had. I saw it somewhere in Charlotte in a multiplex, but it came between Twister and Independence Day, so that's one of my memories is kind of foggy of it. I remember it being a pretty good movie. I don't know who I saw it with, but it was one of those like, okay, it was decent. I remember liking it at the time, and it carried you away for a couple hours. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think that's where this movie kind of falls in the grand scheme of things. With the crowded summer, just cliche after cliche, and I think. Interestingly, I think this movie, if it were released today, would be exactly the same. It would just be, the Soylent Green that people would line up to go to at the theater and come home with. But movies haven't changed a whole lot since then. And I think that's what ultimately kind of soured this one a little bit for me, because there was just so much cliche fatigue with me on this one. And I don't know, again, we talked about this in our previous episodes, if it's just an issue of chronology or just 25 years of the same movie over and over again. It doesn't really, at our point, really matter who did it first. It's just out there now in the ethos. But
and some of the one-liners delivered in this movie are just epic memes now and just made fun of. It's so crazy.
So let's go back in the time machine, Mike, and walk through the quote unquote plot of this movie. So if you're ready, hit the button, Mike. All right, so we open up with the opening credits, of course, and it's mostly just kind of, for our convenience, kind of flashback exposition, or you get these, radio transmissions of some sort of botched mission, and Ed Harris's.
It reminded me of the start of Die Hard 2. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Where there's a guy kind of putting on a uniform, and you're like, oh wow, something foreboding is going to happen, and it's raining outside, and I kind of like the voiceover by Ed Harris to kind of give you the full exposition of what his motive was.
Right. That was decent. And you get this scene where he's in his full military dress, apologizing to his wife for what he's about to do. And it's already tropey. You already see the slow-mo. Even in the opening credits, there's slow motion.
Music video.
And we talked about, what screenwriters love to do in terms of tropes. Anytime there's a funeral in Hollywood, there are forecast calls for 100% chance of rain. Does it ever not rain in a funeral scene in movies?
Sure feels like every scene is from Seattle or something.
And this was like monsoon rain. This wasn't even like. But of course, so we start to understand that he's got an axe to grind against the government, and the opening scene is he takes his elite team of Navy SEALs, and they start taking out. They kind of raid this storage facility and steal these poison rockets. So I guess the U.S. engaged in chemical warfare at some point in our history.
No way.
Didn't understand that. Called VX gas. So they go in there and they testosterone filled melodramatic score where they go in and just start taking out fellow soldiers. And I like the fact that they talk about what they're doing to each other as they're doing it. Like they didn't think about this before. Like the darts are going to wear off in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We know they're darts. We put them in there.
They're not dead.
Yeah. So they take these rockets and they start their grand plan. And then we get to jump back to this FBI building where we're introduced to Stanley Goodspeed.
He likes his vinyl.
I'm sure there's just a action movie name generator that people just plug in numbers to. But he's his first introduction to him is he gets a package in the mail. It's a Beatles album where I guess he was 30 years ahead of the hipster revolution on vinyl. But he's looking for a copy of Meet the Beatles that he paid $600 for, and he can't wait to tell us about it either, Mike. Which at today's value, that he basically paid $1,000 for that album. So I'm a Beatles fan too, but $1,000 for that album, Meet the Beatles. That one of their best.
No, I don't. No, thank you.
So he's a chemical weapons expert because, of course, he is. And right away, everybody in the lab, are actors that we've seen somewhere else too before.
Oh yeah.
So they get this, before he gets like his third line of dialogue out, he's diffusing a package with suspected sarin gas in it.
I was gonna say the first you're jumped right into this movie. I mean, you had that first scene where they're stealing weapons from the Naval Weapons Depot, and everything's time. Got to get this done in this amount of time, and then you jump right into this scene where it's time to defuse this bomb. It's like
slow down.
You can't rest in this movie at all.
So this movie, going back with a grumpy, review of it. This is where I start grinding teeth. It's like this is going to be a long 136 minutes because they jump in the like quarantine chamber and they start, they're cocky and they're starting to defuse this thing, and he brings in this ridiculous lab assistant in there with him who's never done this before apparently. So what do? They take out the contents of the package like a baby doll, and he starts playing with it. He's shaking it around like it's some silly thing. Like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, I know.
So of course he triggers the bomb, and plot point here where there's this atropine injection that they're supposed to take to kind of slows your metabolism down should you get poisoned, so they can hopefully resuscitate you at the end. But Stanley doesn't want to do that. He's too cool. And of course at the last second he defuses the bomb and all the quips go and everything like that. So but yeah, so then it cut right back to Nicolas Cage at home, completely nude except for a guitar.
I was hoping he had some. You couldn't tell he was nude, but I just didn't want to think he was.
I want to hope that there was some sort of underwear on there, but I'm guessing the guitar there is supposed to suggest that it wasn't, but that's not what I want to see really.
No, not really.
But anyway, he that's where we get introduced to his now pregnant wife, Vanessa Marcil, and then she proposes to him and blah blah blah. And what I thought was interesting about this scene is that he just spent $1,000 for his Beatles album, but yet he's listening to. Apparently they didn't have the rights to the song, but he's listening to "World Without Love," which I think Lennon and McCartney only wrote. They didn't release that as a song.
It's not. Yeah, it's not the Chad and Jeremy version. Yeah.
It's I think the Peter and Gordon.
Peter and Gordon. That's right.
You're the music expert. So he's listening to that. So he almost died and he spent $1,000 for an album, and he gets home and he doesn't want to listen to that album. So. But so then so we've got our alleged attempt at a romantic subplot introduced here. So then we get back to the meat of the story where Ranger Bob shows up, Mike.
I couldn't go to sleep last night because I could not remember. He was in a commercial and it was bothering the heck out of me. I don't know what it was. It was like a kids commercial with like a it really drove me crazy because I was thinking of all the cast of this movie. I said, oh yeah, that guy. Wait, I know him from somewhere, and it just never mind. It just
Ranger Bob, like
Ranger Bob.
He looked kind of like a poor man's Meatloaf.
a little bit.
So Ranger Bob's taking a tour of tourists through Alcatraz, and some of those tourists include these camouflaged Navy SEALs. And of course, they come in and they take over the hostages. Of course, Ed sends the kids out because they listen to strangers and just leave. But everybody's left is, of course, I love the sassy hostage, Mike.
Which one was that?
Any of them. They all had quips. They all,
They all had their own personal characters.
Even
Mr. Henderson, he almost got his head blown off. That guy.
Yeah, all stereotypes. What I thought was funny about this movie is they introduce the hostages, but then they just kind of forget about them.
Yeah, I was thinking the question I had was like, well, how'd they get food and whatnot? How did they go to the bathroom?
Facilities, whatever.
Then I thought, I should really just relax.
So yeah, perfect. But luckily the score tells you how you're supposed to. The musical score tells you how you're supposed to.
Hans
feel.
Zimmer. Yes, Twister guy.
Talk about a ham-fisted score. It's basically, it tells you how to feel. This is how you're supposed to feel. So this music's sad, so you need to feel sad now.
Okay, I have a theory. This was not your usual Hans Zimmer soundtrack. I noticed a lot of heavy guitar riffs in a lot of the scenes, and it made me think: was he taking from his other soundtrack for Twister, where he had help from Eddie Van Halen?
It could be the deep tracks of the first one. It sounded a lot like the Pirates of the Caribbean music too.
A little bit. Yeah, I gotcha.
But yeah, so anyway, that's when we get introduced to his plan, and he's got Ed Harris he's keeping these folks hostage, and the government's got 48 hours to compensate the families of the 83 Marines that he was under his command that died without any recognition or benefits or whatever. So he wants $100 million, or he's gonna basically launch these rockets into the heart of San Francisco, these poison gas rockets. So that's it. So that's when this thinking, the smart part of the movie comes in, and that's where we get introduced to the government guys are sitting around the table figuring out what they're going to try to do, and the first option is to I think there's some sort of thermal. I forget what the phrase was. There's some sort of chemical that could just completely take out the thermal plastite.
Plastite. That was it. Yeah, they were doing it in Mojave. They were doing a countermeasure.
So they were just going to just basically nuke the whole place. And of course, they didn't want to do that as their first option. So their great idea was to take a rookie FBI agent and a 60-year-old ex-convict to go in to take out these 12 Navy SEALs. And that's the 60-year-old ex-convict is Sean Connery. And he's got a backstory that they get around to, but he's falsely imprisoned, and
he's broken out of every jail they put him in.
Of course he has, except for so including Alcatraz. So they think that they can poach his knowledge of how he escaped from Alcatraz and use that as a tactical advantage to go in and you still with me? So Stanley Goodspeed knows about chemical weapons, so they bring him along, and they bring in Sean Connery because he knows the ins and outs and the unmapped areas of Alcatraz, and they tag along with these 12 Navy SEALs led by Michael Biehn, and an assemblage of character actors we've seen in every other action movie since, and they get in their choppers, and they decide they're gonna take the back door, which I guess these Ed Harris's group never thought to cover the rear entrance. But
I don't understand. They flew under the 100 feet or whatever to try to be undetected, but obviously Ed Harris's gang detected them coming in. So
they go so far as to say we lost one.
Right.
So I think there were three helicopters, and they lose one. So they think, well, maybe something's up. So they jump out of the helicopters and get on these like underwater scuba driven things, and get through a gate at the back of Alcatraz and casually walk into the back door.
Oh, can I go back just a little bit?
Yeah.
Can we have a brief mention of the San Francisco car chase where Stanley Goodspeed has to catch up with Sean Connery and track him down?
Oh yeah, that's right.
What do you think of that car chase? Was something out of
I got a little ahead of myself. Yeah, so
That's
they
okay.
pull Sean Connery out of the interrogation room at the where his current facility, and they try to coerce him into this. They have Nic Cage try to convince him to do this. He says, "Well, I'll do it, but I want to be at the Fairmount Hotel," and then he wants a shave and a suit. So under heavy surveillance, they bring him into this hotel room, and of course, Sean Connery's too smart for the room,
Of course.
and so he. As he's getting his shower, there's conveniently a phone within arm's reach of the shower where he calls in about $7,000 worth of room service. And of course, all the field agents just spend all their time eating this free food and not watching the door. And then we get introduced to this stylist, who might be the most volatile, repulsive stereotype I've ever seen in movies.
Surge from 48 Hours comes to mind.
Yeah, but yeah, so he does this elaborate plan to try to escape, but he's really just trying to get out to connect with his daughter, who conveniently lives down the block, Claire Forlani. But prior to that, there's this, I don't know, it felt like about 35-minute chase scene.
Yeah, just so unnecessary. But I figured, okay, they're in San Francisco, and B, you got trolleys, and you got the winding roads. It's like, oh my gosh, are you serious here?
Yeah, they kind of beat you over the head with that one.
Yeah, even the visual of the Humvee crushing a VW Bug that was painted with like peace signs and flowers.
Yeah, like surprised they didn't get like Jerry Garcia to drive that thing. But yeah, it was like they let you know that was in San Francisco.
What about the Scatman Carruthers like guy that was operating the trolley?
Oh God, of course. Yeah. So what's funny about that scene is that was added in because they felt there was a lull in the movie. So the Disney executive said, "We need something here." So don't write anything clever. Just go chase some things, blow some things up, and of course most of it's in slow motion. But it's just like this. There's boom, there's slow mo, and then there's a quip, and there's a boom, and there's a slow mo, and there's a quip, and it's just this nauseating ad nauseum.
It's almost a rhythm. It's almost a rhythm to it. Though after a while, you just get your mind just numbs it out.
So I got up, took out the trash, and when I came back in, the scene was still going on, so I didn't really miss much. So the Eagles, which is the squad team's name, they get in, they go to the back door, and they walk pretty much directly into a trap. Of course, before this, Sean Connery goes his own way, and he because he's got a in-depth knowledge of the tunnels. He goes through this boiler. He
memorized the pattern. Yes.
Yeah, 60 years later, he remembers the frequency of the boiler air shaft.
Why is that boiler still on, by the way?
That's what the executive asked Michael Bay, and you know what his response was?
Oh crap!
Big deal. Who cares? It's a movie. That's what Michael Bay said.
There we go.
So I mean, why should we care? Is the question I'm asking at this point. If the director and the producers didn't care, but we'll keep going.
Mine carts. Really? Are they really? I've been to San Francisco a few times. I've never been to Alcatraz. Sadly, I did not know there were mine carts underneath the prison.
Well, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
So obviously, because they're questionable decisions. Nic Cage and Sean Connery lead this group into an ambush, essentially, and all the good Navy SEALs get killed by all the bad Navy SEAls. And for somehow this gets turned into the trigger for Sean Connery and Nic Cage to turn into Rambo all of a sudden. Yeah. And the movie just is, from there, it's just a kind of a series of set pieces from
Die Hard.
Yeah. It's, there's the Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom thing where they're riding these minecart shafts through. And some of the special effects and stunt work there was really not good.
No.
You could literally see a dummy falling out of one of those. And then eventually Sean Connery more or less concedes and turns himself into Ed Harris.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love the wig that Sean Connery's stuntman wears. By the way, I just want to see it just to see a couple of those things again.
Yeah. So so they decide, because there's only two of them, that they can take the element of surprise, allows them then go in and kind of diffuse all 12 of these rockets. So each one of these rockets in the fuselage assembly have these like green glass balls of this toxic gas, VX gas, like a chandelier, which questionable engineering on that one, but we're just going to let that go. So through the course of the second and third acts, they kind of diffuse all but a couple of these, and they've got two left. And at one point, they get captured for the third time.
I lost track.
So the Navy SEALs capture both of them, put them in a jail cell, unguarded. So they put the most successful escape artist of all time in an unguarded jail cell. And I'll take a lot of stuff in movies because I can suspend disbelief just to enjoy a movie. But when your main characters escape the third time, it's like, okay, maybe the threat's not that bad. Maybe this isn't a real challenge anymore. So I kind of I was hanging on by a thread at this point, but yeah. So there's a great line here that I appreciated, Mike. Nicolas Cage made a conscious decision to not curse during this film. Throws a lot of friggins and a lot of hex and darns.
Cut me some freaking slack.
Yeah, and one of my favorites was, what in the name of Zeus's butthole are we going to do? Zeus's butthole, Mike.
That's the only time I've ever heard that. That was awesome.
I need to start using that, I guess. But what was besides the obvious silliness of that, what I thought was even more fun was that he fought for that line to stay in the movie.
No, oh my gosh.
He fought. Michael Bay said, I'm not letting you use that, and he fought for it. So yeah.
Oh wait, can I go over a few lines that were sprinkled in?
Yeah,
until this point. All right, okay. Because after a while, I stopped writing notes. I just had a couple of post-it notes. I was like, I filled those up. I was like, you know what? Let me just write down a couple of quotes I hear.
Yeah.
During the car chase, Sean Connery, I hope you're insured. Talking about this is Sean Connery quipping to the FBI officer saying that Stanley Goodspeed has to come on the mission. He says, I believe you're between a rock and a hard case. Sean Connery.
I'm only going to allow a few more.
Okay. The epic line when as soon as the SEAL team arrives with them from underwater, he says, welcome to the rock.
Welcome to the rock. Yeah.
And then we get of course, I've got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, that's.
And then I'm too old for this.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
There you go.
I mean, you can't not have that in there.
Oh, I forgot. Green light, the SEAL incursion. Mason is our only hope.
It's like they saw every action. Well, again, the premise of this show is to try to understand. Are we giving it fair assessment? Have we just seen 25 years of movies like this, or did they? But being first in this is not necessarily. I don't want to be a trailblazer on tropes.
Yeah, losers go home and cry to their mom. Winners F the prom queen.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, so F exactly. So, but anyway, they at this point you're everybody's out of steam, including the audience. So they say, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So they get to this standoff where the government can't come up with the cash from the secret account that everybody knows they have. So Ed says to launch one of the missiles, and it's heading towards Oakland Raiders Coliseum, Mike. I guess it was a Sunday.
Candlestick Park.
Was it Candlestick Park? Okay.
Well, this is
Raiders.
I have a big quibble here. They actually show the map. They show it on the east side of the bay. And
that's not right. Yeah.
Candlestick Park is on the west side. So I thought, wow, how could they let this is a cinema sin right here? How could they let this fly?
If that were the only issue with this movie, they'd be in a lot better shape. And I guess the Raiders didn't draw very well in the mid 90s because there's about 18,000 people in a $70,000 seat Coliseum. So that might be true. But what Ed did, unbeknownst to his team, is he changed the coordinates to veer off the target and land in the middle of the ocean. And then of course his Tony Todd and all his other
Yes.
minions are furious because they they want blood, and they're a little more passionate about the cause, I guess, than Ed is. Ed didn't really want to do. He said he wanted the threat of violence to be the precursor. He just wanted to get people paid. But these guys wanted blood, and so they do a bit of a Reservoir Dogs Mexican standoff, of course, where Ed Harris is essentially, the sympathy you're supposed to feel for this guy is kind of prevalent through the whole movie. From the first scene where he's talking to his deceased wife and explaining what he's trying to do for the common good. So it's kind of hard to root against him. And at the end, they figured out, well, we have to have a bad guy here somewhere. So they pick the rest of the guys. So there's one like final standoff, and they kind of through attrition kind of kill each other. And there's two baddies left. One is Tony Todd, who gets the bad end of a rocket.
Rocket Man.
Yeah, and then gets impaled on a fence post.
That was a violent. I was surprised how violent that death was. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, and then Stanley Goodspeed slams this baseball size green glass ball in somebody's mouth because that fits, because they'd have his mouth agape during a fight, of course. And then so he releases this gas, and then he injects himself with the atropine, like we talked about. And then he runs out, and to avoid the F-18s that Jesus is flying, he goes out with these green flares to call off the attack. So he's out there platoon style with I guess that's the iconic shot.
Oh yeah, it's like Alias at the end of Platoon. You're right.
Yeah, before he loses it, he saves. I guess save for one. I think they had to get one more big boom boom in the movie before they ran out of film. So there's one big explosion, and so that gives them the plot convenience to when the FBI actually shows up, and thanks for everybody for their good deeds. He plants the seed that Sean Connery was vaporized and he can escape, because they had built this bond with each other, of course, through the course of the movie. And so Nic Cage is the hero, and because it was never in doubt, really. And that's the end. Oh wow. And again, I try to look at these films with some reverence, at least for what they were at the time. But wow, of the ones we've seen so far, this one, I wanted to hit something. The stop button was one of them. But
pause,
yeah, it was
pause. Think about what another movie you want to watch.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because I guess when I stopped here. Well, let's get to that when we talked about the review. So it wraps up, and so it ended up doing great, of course, and it made 335 million, which back then is just ridiculous box office numbers. They hinted at a sequel, and they tried to get one made. The premise for that was, all the military secrets that ultimately got Sean Connery imprisoned.
Oh yeah.
He had stored them in a small little church somewhere in the middle of Podunk,
Kansas. By the way, Kansas doesn't have mountains like that. Just so you know. That bothered me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I love that.
The little do you like the scene where the Volvo has the tin cans tied up to the back and just married, and you're supposed to imagine they drove all the way to Kansas like that.
And Kansas doesn't have deserts either, by the way. I love how Hollywood has suspect geography. Christmas Vacation's another one where the Griswolds live in suburban Chicago, right where I grew up. And when they're going out to get their Christmas tree, they're literally in Northern California. I can promise you that Illinois does not have that kind of does not have mountain ranges.
Let's save that for another podcast. We'll go over geography flubs from Bollywood.
So, but yeah, the movie did really well, and the audience loved it. The critics were middle of the road, of course, but Roger Ebert liked this one. But the sequel they teased was that Stanley would be chased down for those the microfilm that he had, and then he was going to try to call on Sean Connery to he was the only one that could save him. But the financing and the scheduling never came through, so they just kind of abandoned that sequel. But but again, they've made this movie 1,700 times since we left it there. But I was thinking of movies that do this premise better, and like the Taking the Pelham 1, 2, 3, the original one from '74,
right? Walter Matthau.
Yeah, I mean, people won't watch that because it's the time it came out. But if you're interested in seeing a really good hostage movie, that's how you can do it well.
Yeah, or Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon is another. That's a great one. Yeah, I mean that's how the hostage element and you seem like there's no solution, and they're dramatic and they're important, and they don't fit the template for modern takes on that. But so this was nominated for a couple Oscars on the technical categories, but
can't be nervous there.
Best original screenplay, not one of them. Okay. But again, because we have our finger on the pulse of pop culture, we need to go back to our beloved MTV for this one, Mike.
No.
It did win a golden popcorn bucket. This one was best on-screen duo for
Connery and Cage.
Yeah, Connery and Cage.
Awesome. Okay, that makes sense. I thought it was pretty.
There was a lot of controversy that year, Mike, because that was a very hotly contested category. They beat out the likes of Beavis and Butthead.
No.
Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio and Romeo and Juliet.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yikes. And
what about Ted? What about Ted and Bill and Joe from Twister?
They weren't even in there. Other nominees included Nathan Lane and Robin Williams from The Birdcage.
Yes.
And then, just to say this out loud, I have an unfair beef with MTV, and I'm going to continue to share that unabashed. They put Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare from Fargo in that list.
As a duo?
Duo. And those two guys are so great in that fantastic movie that they wouldn't soil themselves to be lumped in an MTV Movie Award. But anyway, okay. I digress.
I'm guessing Cage and Connor didn't win.
They won. They
did win. Okay.
Yeah. That's so.
Okay, I thought all Beavis and Butthead had that in a runaway.
Well, I thought Beavis and Butthead had the inside track, because they were on MTV.
Mm-hmm.
But cooler heads prevail. But yeah, so there you go. That's this big, loud, dumb movie. That just, again, I think if this movie were made today, people would still line up and go see it. It's got everything that current movies have. There's nothing unique about it. It's just been done a lot, and I don't know if it was done for the first time here, but again, the fatigue you feel from this thing is like, it was a tough one. So
yeah. So it was a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. So from my look, no spoilers here. When I first saw it, I probably gave it like a 3 out of 5 because it was a different time and it was fun. It was fast moving, fast paced, boom, boom, boom. What's not to like? But the second time through with older, more cynical eyes, it's a 1.5 out of 5 for me. This was a hard one. What got me through it was just knowing how much fun we could have with it. 'Cause there's just a lot of silliness there.
Yeah.
But you just at some point you just can't get past all the cliches,
Yeah.
Mike, how do you feel about it?
I loved it when I saw it. For what I can remember, I loved a lot of movies, but I didn't know who Michael Bay was at the time, and I figured, hey, it's a bright, young, fresh fella. So I thought about 4 stars probably when I saw it. This time, maybe 2.5. Like I said, now when I see Michael Bay's name come up, I'm like, oh, Transformers, Deep Hurting, that kind of thing. And I did appreciate, the action in a way, as far as boom, boom, boom. This is great. Every scene goes kind of the story kind of flowed in a way if you just turned off your brain a little bit.
Yeah.
There's maybe a little too much testosterone, even for my liking, but it is what it is. I haven't seen this male a cast as The Hunt for Red October. If you want to mention another Sean Connery,
it was. There was a. Sorry to interrupt. There was a line that we're talking about it that Sean Connery says when he's confronting Ed Harris about the futility of his plan.
Yeah,
And he goes, he called it the scheme pubescent volatility. And I'm
yes.
like, amen, brother.
But what I did like was, Connery and Cage, they kept it above the level of goofiness. Like that was one of the things that Independence Day kind of made an impression with me, was there was almost too much glibness and too much levity. Whereas this one, the only levity you got was from Connery and Cage, which kind of made him that really good duo. Everybody else in the movie is walking this real serious line, and I appreciated that in a way. It was a little too melodramatic, but I did like the fact that our two heroes are the guys kind of exchanging one-liners. Even if they were kind of silly.
As the geniuses at MTV did get it right. I mean, there was a good chemistry between these two guys, and that was kind of organic because Sean Connery did this movie because he heard Nic Cage was in it. There was kind of mutual admiration between the two of them, and Sean Connery's a big fan of this movie. It's one of his favorite movies he's ever made, and there was an element there where Sean Connery took a real paternal take on this movie. The Disney executives didn't like the way Michael Bay, a relatively new filmmaker at the time, was addressing it. And Sean Connery met with the producers with him and said, hey, the kid's doing fine, and the kid's doing great. And he gave him that confidence to say he's making a good movie here to get off his back, because they were really micromanaging the dailies on this thing and saying, change this. And then Sean Connery just used his cachet and drew a line in the sand and said, knock it off. This guy's doing a great movie.
It's like he did in the movie. It's like he did in the movie with the thumbs up,
Yeah. But yeah, I'm sorry, Mark, you were saying about your final take.
Oh no, I like I said, it's for the time, I think it was and I'm not going to say, I can't say original, but we were still kind of new to this genre, and it doesn't wear well looking at it now. Like I can understand you having trouble watching it, because for me it was a groan after groan and just kind of eye rolling, like, oh, he did not just say that. Even a little even the speech, I'd forgotten the president makes a brief appearance, or kind of a side of his face appearance, and even his little speech in like the smoke-filled West Wing room, with the we are at war with terror, and if saving the lives of 80,000 means taking the lives of 81, I was like, oh boy, it was like it is a little on the melodramatic side, but it was a serious. Like I said, it you had 90% of the cast, melodramatic, and then you had Cage and Connery who, like they were kind of like hitting each other in the side and laughing and kind of giggling at some of these lines.
It did define a genre, I guess. And, it's important for people that listen to this are aware that, we're not saying these are bad movies. We're saying that this is our take on them. And that's a common misconception with certainly the amount of criticism and film blogs and things like that, where, you see YouTube headers and you'll see things like, this movie sucks. Like, no, it doesn't suck. You just didn't like it, and there's, I find, especially now that given the proliferation of social media and all these platforms where you can state your opinion on anything, it's really important to differentiate that, because,
I think it's important to know the expression, this movie's not made for you.
Right.
We watched this movie, and one of the first things my wife says after we watched this second viewing was, wow, there wasn't really a lot of women in this one. And I was like, well, yeah, you're right. But I said, you're talking about the same year where, Jerry Maguire and The English Patient came out. So, I mean, there were, there was also movies that probably were not made for the average, Michael Bay fan, and this was made for a certain group of guys. And it did boffo at the box office.
This is the 18 to 35 male, demographic that Hollywood just bleeds for. I mean, that's, and for that demographic, this movie's great. For 50-year-old crusty, old dudes, and maybe not so much. But again, it's this for this movie and every movie we've done or wherever we'll do. It's important to remember that, and this is not, this is not the end all be all for these movies. This is just our take on it, and
Yeah.
we're exploring how our opinions on movies change.
We're
our
old
perceptions.
grumps.
Old grumps, yeah. So it's exploring the memory and how memory affects our decisions and all that kind of stuff. But these are not bad movies. They're just movies that we did not like. It's important to summarize that. So
Yeah, and even with most of these movies, I just take down a peg or two just because I feel like the trope has been overused, and like I said, if we can get back in our proverbial time machine and look at we're back in early June 1996 watching it, we're like, wow, this is so great.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
25-year-old Justin is watching it going, whoa, Michael Bay's a genius.
Well, maybe
not.
I don't know. 25-year-old Justin had a little on the ball, but probably not that much. But again, that's the whole point of this podcast, is to see what perceptions and what time does to us. And this was a good kind of litmus test to see how low can you go. When people say, well, I love that movie, so, well, listen to our podcast. And well, did you really give yourself another shot at it? So but conversely, I think what's interesting is that movies that you don't like, I never thought that we would come up with movies that we end up appreciating more, and that's been the lion's share of what we reviewed so far. Is like, oh, wow, the fact that these movies can persevere makes me appreciate them even more, because they had something more. I think the distance created by time allows you to kind of appreciate things like that.
You got to realize these are the tentpole movies that were aped and copied and appreciated by other creators down the line. They're like, wow, that move Nic Cage just made there, that I want to do, and we end up seeing it, and you just get kind of, like I said, numb to it.
So if you stuck around with us that long and you're complaining that we're being haters, just calm down. Relax. So
I tell you what, watch Transformer Dark Side of the Moon or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
And then watch this movie.
Come back. We'll talk. Yeah. Tough guy. So this is the part of the show where we kind of before we leave, we just want to share to our listening audience some cool recommendations of things we're currently watching or enjoying. So Mike, what are you up to right now?
Just finished Severance last night. That was fantastic.
Oh, amazing.
I hate that I have to wait a year for the next season, but I will.
I both loved and hated the way they ended it, because it was completely well done. Completely well done. But yeah,
exactly. So we'll see what happens with that. And getting ready to watch Sonic 2, which is one of the few movie genres my son will watch with me.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not good with video game movies, that's for sure. I'm currently watching. Well, I watched a movie over this weekend, which I just thought was incredible. It's on HBO Max. It's called Tony Hawk Until the Wheels Fall Off. It was a documentary about the rise, fall, and then rise again of pro skater Tony Hawk. And I grew up with skateboard culture, and so it was a nice little nostalgic, if you will, trip down memory lane. But it was a very personalized and very kind of poignant look at Tony Hawk's life as a pro skater. Really kind of exploring the culture of the skating scene and how important that was, and the enduring kind of legacy that it implanted on modern culture. So just a great introspective look at Tony Hawk. So if you're a fan of that or that culture, I strongly suggest you check that out. It's a great watch. So. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this show. We really enjoy bringing these to you guys every week or every 2 weeks. We're going to try to increase the frequency of our output a little bit more now that we got our footing. We kind of know how to do this. We'll try to get some content increased here for sure. So we'd love to hear from you on potential things you might want us to review or look at. If you'd like to reach out to us, again, our email address is nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com, and you can always follow any updates on our show, coming attractions, or current feedback or interface, and get us through our Instagram page at Grumpy Nostalgia on Instagram. So, Mike, anything else?
Zeus's butthole.
We're going to leave you with that, guys. But again, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you again next time.